So I've already covered the first two lessons, which the first lesson is where we will learn about the Mandarin phonetic system called pinyin. The second class is where we will learn about the basic strokes and how do you write Chinese character? How do you write them? What are the stroke orders? The third lesson will be about numbers. It sounds so simple, numbers, but we're not only going to cover 1 to 10, we're going to cover 1 to 1,000 to 100,000 to millions. Yeah, so all in 1 hour is going to be a very intense class. So when you attend this class, the third class, please be very refreshed because it's going to be, wow, a lot of things for you to memorize. The fourth class is about greetings. It's a bit more relaxed than third class, but otherwise it'll be very fun as well. Fifth class is when you have your first meeting, then what should you say to the other person? Like, nice to meet you, that kind of thing. So you will learn that in the fifth class. The sixth class is where we'll be learning about one person's nationality and where they are from. So let's see, where's your kampung? Where is your hometown? This is where we cover. The sixth class is where we will cover all those things. The seventh class is where we will cover your occupation. We will start to learn how do we say job names, what are the job names, how do we say that in Mandarin. We will learn some generic job names and we'll be learning about your own job names as well. So by the sixth class, I would be requesting for you to send over your occupation. And then, we will learn about it in the seventh class. Eighth class, we will talk about age. So notice we talk about age here, which is why the third class is very important. You need to memorize your numbers. And then when we move on to the age, topic of age, we will be easy. You can easily say what is your age. The ninth class will be your revision class. So your revision class is quite an interactive class whereby you would be asked to speak just on the spot spontaneously. It's okay if you do it wrong. That's the whole point of revision class, right? And then the 10th class, you'll be doing the assessment. The assessment is very simple. No need to worry about it. So long as you pay attention in your revision class, you should be fine lah doing your 10th class, okay? All right, any questions before I move on? Any questions?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. Don't need to be so malu-malu. Don't need to be so shy. Okay, let's move on to the first lesson of the group class. It is the introduction to Mandarin pronunciation, or what we call 汉语拼音介绍. What is 汉语拼音? 汉语拼音 is basically the spelling, like I said just now, the spelling for Mandarin characters. So you can see just now, 汉拼音. The spelling for these characters in English, alphabetized, are these things. So Han corresponds to this Han. Just going to change my pointer here for a bit. So this Han corresponds to this Han. Yu corresponds to this one. Pin corresponds to this one. Yin corresponds to this one. Okay? So the whole purpose of having this Hanyu pinyin or Mandarin phonetics, the whole purpose of having this is because we want, not we lah, the Mandarin, the language in itself, wants to help people who don't speak Mandarin to be able to speak Mandarin. So they invented this thing so that you're able to pronounce Mandarin characters, okay? So at the early stage, when we are starting off, especially in level 1, part 1, level 1, part 2, whatever characters you see on the screen, most of it would have a Hanyu pinyin to supplement the Mandarin characters. So you don't have to worry too much about it because you're just starting out. So you might not be able to recognize a character. But as you move on, let's say you move on to level 2, part 1, level 2, part 2, I will slowly remove the Hanyu pinyin. You will only see the Mandarin characters. I'm not scaring you. I'm only doing it in a very slow manner. But the whole point of me telling you this is because when you learn Mandarin, right, it's not enough for you to learn only how to say, because as you can tell, there are a lot of characters in Mandarin, in the Mandarin world. It is impossible for you to learn how to speak without recognizing the characters because the characters are so important. The same word, like for example, Han, could mean something else if you change even the slightest bit of stroke in a Mandarin character. And some of them will even look the same. For example, HAN, it will have this stroke right here, but if you look at the Mandarin character, it's a completely different character. So that's why it's very important for you to actually know the characters. You don't have to memorize, but at least try to recognize how it looks like. The shape of it will be okay. So as I mentioned just now, each character corresponds to one Hanyu pinyin, right? Basically, one character, Mandarin character is, one Hanyu pinyin here represents one character. Okay, and as you can tell already, however you see on screen is how you pronounce it. Of course, it's not like how you pronounce it in English. Sometimes you have to learn a new pronunciation. We will cover it in this lesson. And also this is the most common way for you to input your Chinese character into your computer or your phone. So if you have a smartphone, which I'm very sure that most of you have, I will teach you like how do you input Chinese character into your phone later towards the end of this class, okay? All right, okay. Now, Hanyu Pinyin, what is it made of? Hanyu Pinyin is generally made of uh, three things, actually, but two main things. The first main thing is initials. The second main thing is finals. There is a third main thing we will cover later. So initial, or in Mandarin we say 声母 is basically at the start of every Hanyu pinyin. So for example, you can see 声母. So M is the initial, it's the starting lah, basically the starting lah. Okay, and for 声, the starting is SH. Okay, so other examples of initials would be T, B, P, T, B, P. And finals, in which Mandarin we call 韵母. Finals is, for example, you can see here 韵母. Just now I covered already. Initials should be Y, correct or not? UN would be your finals. UN would be your finals. For 母 mu. M is your initial. U is your finals. Other examples of finals would be A, E, A, E. And then when you combine these two, you will get the syllables. Okay. TA. T is the initial. A is the finals, okay? Ta, okay? All right, so now let's look at this word ta. All right, so just now I mentioned just now, initial would be T, A is final, and the last and the most important one is actually the tone. The tone is where is something in Mandarin language that you will need to master. If you speak Mandarin, if you're just, let's say, just now I say you have to recognize the character. Let's say you say, "Aya, 老师, teacher, I really don't want to learn how to recognize character. I just want to learn how to speak." If that's the case, then you have to master the tone. Your intonation, your tone is the most important part of the entire speaking world in Mandarin. Okay, so your speaking world is all about your tone, all about your initial, all about your final. If anything, just master this, okay? Of course, you don't have to memorize, you don't have to memorize, this T is an initial, this A is a final. But you do have to memorize the tone. The tone, how does it look like? You have to memorize. You have to know how it looks like, okay? It's very, very important. Okay, so again, just to recap, the Hanyu pinyin, the Chinese syllables is made out of an initial, a final, and a tone. And like I said just now, one Chinese character responds to one syllable. For example, this Han responds to this Han. One word here, 语 corresponds to one word. The is one word, okay? All right. Now, just now I said there are three parts to a Mandarin Hanyu pinyin. One is initial, final, and tone. But not everything has to have an initial. It must have a final and tone though. So in other words, I can make do without an initial, but the final and the tone must exist. Okay? All right. So just now I mentioned that the initials is at the front, the finals are at the back. Okay. Now, tone, or what we call the 声调, is actually a mark that is above the final. So you notice or not, 声母, 韵母, 声调, you notice or not, all the strokes here, the tone strokes are actually on top of the final. See, ENG, U, ENG, IAO. These are all on top of the finals, okay? Now, we have about 21 initials and we have about 38 finals. There are different combination. You don't have to memorize all this, but you just have to know, just so you know what you're getting into. There are 21 initials, 38 finals, but there are only 4 tones. Even though there's only 4 tones, it's very, very important for you to get it right. Okay? 好, now, let's look at the 声调, the tone, all right? So as you can see, here you can see ENG and U and U and U, ENG and IAO. So let's look at ENG. You can see that the tone is on top of the E. U is on top of the U because it's the only one there, so it doesn't have a choice, right? So UN is on top of the U. This one is also on top of the U. ENG is on top of the E. So if you notice, one commonality is that the tone is actually placed on top of a, can anyone notice or not? On top of the what? On top of the
Vocal.
very good. A, E, I, O, U. You can see I type it here. Type it here. All right, so you can notice it's like all on top of the vocal. A, E, I, O, U. And then suddenly you have this tail. I, A, O. You ask yourself, if you're like alone, you ask yourself, hey, this one got I, got A, get O. If I want to write down with the initial, with the final, with the tone, where should I put the tone mark? Don't know, because there is I, A, O ma. How do I choose? I choose ini, mini, miny, mo, is it? No. The answer is you would follow the order of A, E, I, O, U. So which one comes first? A, E, I, O, U, A comes first, right? So that's why you put it on top of the A. Okay, so let's say there's no A, there is only I and O. That doesn't exist, by the way. There's only I and O, then it should go on top of the I. Let's say if there's only O and U, then it should go on top of the O. Okay, so the order is A first or E first, and then I, and then O, and then U. Okay, you cannot, like, let's say I tell you, cannot put it on top of every single one, it's not correct. There's only one tone for every single Han Yu pinyin. Okay, all right, remember that. How? Now, let's talk about the initials and the finals first. Let's see some of the combinations that exist. Okay, so you have so many here that you can see here. So there's B, P, M, F, D, T, and so on, and a lot of finals. Okay, so now, this class, I will be focusing on how do we pronounce these words. Let me just pull this one because it's not correct. Hold on, this one dropped already. Okay, all right. So you can see here, there is B and there is P. Now, this one, this part, this slide, I will need all of you to unmute yourself. Not now, just you will have to unmute yourself because you are going to practice how to pronounce this. There are key differences to each initial and each finals also. So these are the things that you will need to master in order to speak fluent Mandarin, okay? So now let's start with B. B-A, B-A. How do you pronounce it? Listen to me first, okay? You pronounce it as ba, ba, ba. Now, don't unmute yet. Now, let's listen to PA and what is the difference. So PA sounds like pa, pa, pa. Okay, ba, BA, pa, PA. Very simple, very straightforward, right? Okay, now, try to unmute yourselves. Let's follow after me. Ba,
ba,
ba.
ba,
对，很好。Now, let's try PA, pa.
pa,
Pa.
pa,
非常好。BA, PA, pa. Sounds very simple, right? Okay. Now I will walk you through every single one of these finals. Okay, and then we will hear how it sounds like. Okay, we will talk about finals first, okay? Finals first, Okay, now finals. A is A. A is A. It's not A because, sometimes we A in English, we say A instead of A. But in Mandarin, it's always A, always A. So for example, ba, pa, M, A will be ma, F, A is fa. Okay, so on and so on. It's always A. Now, O, O is always O as well. For example, BO is po, po, PO is po, po, MO is mo, mo. So it's always O. Okay, O. All right, so let's follow after me. Let's try po, po,
po,
po.
po,
Very good. So PO is po. Try again, po.
po,
po,
Very good. BO is bo.
bo,
Very good.
bo,
Now let's try MO, mo.
mo,
mo,
Very good. Now E. E is always pronounced never suddenly A. A, no, E doesn't exist. Okay. Now let's look at this. FE. Fur, it doesn't exist. So FE doesn't exist. So don't repeat after me. So but DE exists. DE is the. Let's repeat after me.
the,
Wow, good.
the,
Now let's listen to T. TE is t. Let's repeat after me.
the,
Very good. Now, if you notice the and te, what's the difference? The sounds like the lah. Te, you would notice when you speak te, don't need to unmute. You just speak on your own respective houses or rooms or whatever places you're looking at this video at. When you speak te, you would feel more air coming out of your mouth. More air. Te. Take your hand, put it in front of your lips. You can feel more air. Te. Versus if you say de, the, you can barely feel any air. You can barely feel any air. So you must note this difference. D and T are two different things. The, te. Okay? Now let's move on to I. I is pronounced E. E. So for example, DI would be D, TI would be T. Again, take your hands, put it in front of your lips. When you say DI, D, you won't feel too much air. D, D versus T, TI, T, T. Okay, can you feel it? T, more air. Okay. All right. Now let's repeat after me. D.
D.
Another one. T.
T.
T. Very
T.
good. Very good. 好. Now let's look at this one. This one is quite important. U. One is you and one is you with the eyes. Haha. You with the eyes. So you and you with the eyes. Now, there's a distinct difference between you and you with the eyes. Okay. Now, you is generally pronounced as u. 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 Now, you with the eyes is pronounced like this. Okay. We. So you imagine Taylor Swift song, We Are Never Getting Back Together. We, adalah, we. Okay. Now, if you still have trouble pronouncing the we, which generally new speakers, new learners of Mandarin language would face, the tip is you take your two fingers, okay, put it at the edge of your lips, okay, and then when you say we, you push your lips inward. So we, we, we. Let's try it together. We. Let's try together. We.
We.
Very good. We. Okay, very good. Now let's see how this word sounds like. This final sounds like when it's combined with an initial. For example, NU is no. No. Very simple word, right? Now let's look at NU with the eyes. Nu. Nu. Now let's repeat after me. NU first. NU first. No.
No.
No. Very good. Now let's try NU with the eyes. Nu.
Nui.
Very good. One more time. Nu.
Nui.
Very good. So nui is very important. Nui means female. Nui means female. So it's very important for you to get it right, especially if you're a female, because if you accidentally say no, it means something else. It doesn't mean female. It doesn't mean it's not a very good word actually. No. So nui is something that you have to master. All right. Now let's look at AI. AI is pronounced I. 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 The way you would say the character I in English language. AI is I. Okay, so let's see how it sounds like with N. So it will sound like nine, nine. With L, it will sound like lie, lie. With B, it will sound like buy, buy. P, it will sound like pie, pie. So remember just now we learned about D and T? T has more breath, right? When you put your hands in front of your lips, T has more breath, right? B and P has the same concept. P will have more breath. So for example, when you say bai, B-A-I versus pie, if, if you put your hands in front of your lips, when you say bai, you will not feel too much air. But when you say P-A-I, pie, you feel more air coming out of your lips. So for example, B-A-I, bai, bai, very little air. P-A-I, pie, pie, you feel the air. Let's try. Bai,
Bái.
pie.
Pie.
Very good. 好, let's look at this one. EI is A. A. How you would pronounce the character A in the English language. EI is A. A. Okay, so let's look at LEI. How do you pronounce it? Lay. Lay. G is gay. Gay. So G is pronounced G. 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 Okay. Gay. Guy. Okay. Gay. Guy. Gu. Okay. Gay. Guy. Gu. Okay. Now, let's move on to AO. AO is ow, ow, ow. Okay, ow. So for example, GAO would be gao, GAO would be gao, LAO would be lao. GAO is gao, KAO is kao, gao, kao, gao, kao. Again, the difference is the same as DNT and BNP. Kao, K, you will feel more air coming out of your lips. Kao versus gao, you will notice gao, G has no air at all. Okay, coming out of your lips. All right. So try this at home. Try this from your computer screen or your phone screen. Try that. Make sure you get it right. Okay. Feel free to unmute if you want to test it out loud. Okay. Now OU is O. O. Okay. So GOU is go. KOU is ko. Again, take your hands and put it in front of your lips. G-O-U is go, no air. K-O-U is ko, got air. Okay? H-O-U, H is just h, very simple. H, ho, ho, ho. Okay? Now, the next one is er. E-R is very simple and straightforward. So for example, let's look at what works. Well, you see exactly we're not there yet. So let's just stick it at ER first, and then we will get there. How? Next one, E-N. Remember E, how do you pronounce it? It's R, right? So we carry this downwards. So E becomes an, an, is the same thing. Okay, an. So for example, pan, B-A-N, pan, P-A-N, pan, F-A-N, fun, D-A-N, tan. Okay, T-N, tan. Again, D-A-N, tan, tan, no air. T-A-N, tan, tan. You will feel the air. Okay, now E-N. E-N is N. This one is here. E, yeah. Is it this one is N. So carries downwards. Carries downwards. Okay. So E-N, for example, G-E-N is Ken. K-E-N is Ken. Again, Ken, G-E-N, no air. Ken. K-E-N, yes, you will feel the air. Okay. I carry forward to from I here. So I is E. This one is in. Okay. In. Okay. So J-I-N, J is pronounced J, J, J. J-I-N is Jin, Jin, Jin. Okay. Q-I-N, Q is pronounced Ch, Ch. It sounds like Q, right? It sounds like you would pronounce it the way you pronounce it in English, but no. Q essentially is pronounced like CH. How you pronounce CH in English? CH in English. So Q-I-N, you imagine this Q, you convert to CH. So become chin, chin. Okay, it's not kin. Okay, not kin. It's C-H-I-N. You take the Q, replace it with CH, become chin, chin. Okay, now before I move on to ANG and so on, let's look at X. X is also very important in the Mandarin language. So X in English, we would pronounce X as Z. Z. For example, xylophone. Xylophone starts with an X, right? So you would say xylophone. But that's not the case in Mandarin. The case in Mandarin is that your X is basically your S. Your X is your S. So what do I mean by your X is your S? So XI, how do you pronounce it? It's not Z, it is C. You take this X, change it to a S. So become C, C, C. Okay, so try X and U double dot. U double I's, how do I say? X and U with the I's, how do I say that? You will say, take your two fingers to the lips. She. That is a special rule. Now, X, when combined with a U, it becomes SH. It becomes SH. Combined with an I, it becomes S. Okay, so C, Shri, C, Shri. Okay, C, Shri. Okay, now I will skip some finals because the same rule applies like an, ang, en, eng, e, in, all are the same rules. O, ong. Okay, now what I will do is I will take you through XI, XIN. Okay, XI is C. Okay, XIN is sin, XING is sing. Okay, now remember just now when I say XU is she. Okay, XU by default will always be she. Even though the U doesn't have double dot, it will always be she. Okay, remember this is a rule. XU will always be she. Now I will take you through this one. IA. So remember the rule for I and A. What is A? You must say R, right? It will sound like yeah, yeah, yeah. So XIA, again, X meets the I, correct? X meets the I. So remember XI, how do you pronounce? Is C, right? So you just take that rule. XIA is C, yeah. C, yeah. Xia, xia, xia. Okay? Now again, you take this rule to IE. Again, how do you pronounce E in Mandarin? It's right? It's right? Now, when E is combined with E in with I in front, it will not sound like anymore. It will sound like a. Okay, so it will be yeah, yeah, yeah. So XIE is xie, xie, xie. Okay, can? Now, let's look at IAO. AO is, remember just now, AO, how do you pronounce it? Ow, right? Ow, right? So XIAO, again, XI is, how do you pronounce it? C, right? So C, ow, C, ow. In other words, xiao, xiao, xiao. Okay? Now, IU, how do you pronounce U just now? We see U, right? U, right? Okay. But when U is combined with I, it becomes U, U. So again, XIU, XI, how do you pronounce it? It's C. So you just carry forward. Xiu, xiu, xiu. Okay? Can, ah? 好. Now let's look at Z. Z. Z is Z, Z, Z. When you see Z, you can feel your tongue touching the top of your teeth, the front, your front teeth, the back of your front teeth. So Z, Z, Z. So ZUA is pronounced zua, zua, zua. If you find it difficult, pretend that this Z is a J. Zua, zua, zua is a J. Okay, J, zua, then you will get it. Again, ZUO is what? How do you say O? O lah. Zuo, 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 zuo. Okay. Now Z and C, what is the difference? Z, again, you pretend it's a J. C, you pronounce it as the way you pronounce C lah. So for example, CUO is cuo, cuo, cuo. CUI is cui, cui. CUN is cun. Okay. S would be the easiest one. S, you pronounce it as it is. So for example, SENG, sang, SONG, song. You pronounce it the way you pronounce S lah. S is quite easy. Now, you can see suddenly, just now we learned about ZCS, suddenly we have ZH, CH, and SH. Wow, suddenly you got ZH, suddenly you got H, suddenly you got H. What is the difference? Now, there is a key difference between Z and ZH, okay? Z, just now I said you pronounce, you pretend it's the J, right? ZH is you roll your tongue a bit. So let's try, let's try with the simplest word, ZA. ZA is za, za, za. Listen to me first, ZA is za. Now, ZHA sounds like ja, ja, ja. You can feel your tongue is a bit rolled. Again, ZA is za, ZHA is ja. Let's repeat after me. Za, za.
Za.
Now let's try ZH, ja, ja,
Ja.
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 Very good. Ja. Try again. Ja.
Ja.
Very good. Now let's see C and CH. Okay, C, like we said just now, CA will be ca. Again, you can feel your tongue at the back of your front teeth. CH, you will have to roll your eyes a bit. So again, CA is ca, ca. CHA is cha, cha, cha. Let's repeat after me. CA, ca, ca.
Cha.
Very good. Now let's try CHA, 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 cha.
Cha.
Very good. Now, SH is exactly like is the easiest one of the bunch from ZCS and ZHCH, Very simple. So SHA will be sha lah. SA is sa lah. This one is very simple lah. Now, one of the most common mistakes that beginners in Mandarin would make is the word R. Now, the word R, you have to start practicing your already lah. Okay? Now, R, how do you say R in Mandarin? Let's say you combine it with the word UO. There you R. So it becomes ro, ro. You can hear that I roll my tongue big. Ro, ro, ro. Okay, ro. 好，明白啊？ro. So this one you need to practice our R. There, okay? 好, let me take you through this one before we move on to the next page. Okay, so IAN is ian, UAN is one, ian, one. This one is yang. Also the same thing, the same concept. It's all carried forward from this line, the basics that we learned, these first two lines, okay? Yang, yong, wang, weng. Remember, E, when it's not an alone thing, for example, this one, E, it becomes A. This one is E standalone is When it's combined with something else, it becomes A. Okay, so this one is weng. There is U double U eyes, U with the eyes, E, U with the eyes, AN, U with the eyes, N. Now let's look at the U with the eyes, N. That's the easiest one. So again, U with the eyes is pronounced we. So when you have an N at the back, is win, win, win. This one also becomes U with the eyes. AN is when, when. Okay, this one is ue, ue, ue. It's okay. If you're confused, we will have time to go over it as we move on with the class, all right? So now let's move on to the tone. Tone is the most important part of the class, okay? So the tones, again, there are 4 types of tones. Now, this one, you have to memorize how it looks like. You have to memorize how it looks like. Very simple only. The first tone is a flat tone, okay? The second tone is a tone that goes upwards. The third tone is the thing that shapes like the V, okay? The V, it goes downwards and then it goes upwards. The fourth tone, it goes downwards, okay? So how do you memorize this? This is the most easiest part of all. The easiest part of all is you just look at this chart. This is exactly how you pronounce it. So this one is accidentally cut out. Sorry about that. But what it is you can see it's a graph, right? It's a graph. So this one, the tone is flat but high. Flat but high. So MA, flat. So it will not be ma. It will be ma. You notice I go high, but I go flat. Ma. Let's repeat after me. Ma.
Ma.
Very good. Ma.
Ma.
Very good. Now, the second tone, we go upwards. We go upwards. Okay. So now, this one, moving your body will help you. Notice I will also move my body, okay? Ma. Ma. Notice if I go upwards or not. Ma. Okay, now, let's repeat after me. Ma. Ma.
Ma.
Very good. Ma. 好. Now, let's look at the third tone. Now, the third tone, you go downwards and then you go upwards a bit. Ayo, teacher, I also really confused. Okay, basically, it's very easy. It's, again, moving your body helps, right? Moving your body helps. So you can do ma, ma. Different from the second tone. Second tone is ma. Third tone is ma, ma, ma. Okay, let's try. Third tone, ma, ma.
Ma.
Go lower a bit. Go
Ma.
lower a bit. Ma.
Ma.
对，很好 very good. 马 very good. Okay, now the fourth tone is the easiest of all. I always like the fourth tone. Why? Because it sounds like scolding, even though this word is actually scolding, it means scolding, but it really sounds like you're scolding someone. So MA with the fourth tone sounds like ma. Ma. You know when you scold someone, ma, like that lah. Like that, ma. Scold someone. Okay, let's try. Ma.
Ma.
Very good. Now let's try all 4 together. I'm going to repeat slowly and then we're going to go over one more time and then you can repeat after me, okay? Now, ma, 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 ma. One more time, Ma, 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 ma. Let's repeat after me. Ma,
Ma.
ma,
Ma.
ma,
Ma.
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 对，很好. Very good. All right, so again, now let's zoom into the tone mark. The tone mark again for the first one is exactly like the graph, exactly like the graph, okay? This one is a flat, this one goes up, this one is a V shape, this one goes down. So the first one is a flat, first tone is a flat mark. Second tone goes up, third tone is a V, fourth tone is a going down stroke. Okay, so again, in Chinese syllable, this is the initials, the finals, the tone you put on top of the vocal, okay? So these are the Chinese characters that corresponds to the Hanyu pinyin, and this is the meaning. So ma means mother, ma means numb, ma means horse, and ma means to school. All right, very good. Now let's look at the combination table. Oh, sorry about that. I'll go over this in a very short while. Let's look at the combination table. So just now we already learned all the initials and we already learned all the finals. So you can see, the one on the left side here are all the initials that you can ever see in your whole life of learning Mandarin. And the ones on top of here are some of the finals. Some of the finals are not all. Some of the finals that you will be stumbling upon as you go on. So as you can see, there is combination between initial and finals, but there are some combinations that do not exist. Again, you don't have to memorize this, but at least you know. You must know that even though we have initials and we have finals, doesn't mean we can simply marry them together. Some of them don't exist. So all the gray shaded areas are all the ones that does not exist. Okay? All right. So later on, in the group chat, I will be giving you this one link that links to the Edu Mandarin website. Okay, so in this website, you'll be able to see something that looks like this, but it will have a sound button. So you can click on the sound button, you can listen to how it sounds like. Okay, so for example, B plus AO, bao, you can hear the word bao and you can hear in different intonation. So bao, 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 for example. Some tones do not exist, but again, you don't have to memorize that. Just know that some tones do not exist for some combination. Okay, huh? Just now we learned that there are four tones in a Mandarin world, okay? But there is actually a fifth tone. There is actually a fifth tone. The fifth tone is the neutral tone. What is a neutral tone? It is when you see BA, for example, or MA just now, ma, 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 ma. Suddenly the A doesn't have any tone. It doesn't have a first tone, second tone, doesn't have any stroke at all. It's just MA, like how you write in English, MA. Then you're like, 老师, what is this? How to pronounce this? It's just a neutral tone. So what is a neutral tone? Neutral tone means that I said just now, there is no mark on top of the vocal. Okay, and it's pronounced in a short and soft voice. So for example, just now we learned about the four tones of MA, right? Ma, 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 ma. Okay, neutral tone is just ma, ma, ma. It's like you want to say, but you don't want to say that. Ma, ma, ma. Okay, very simple, right? So again, there are actually five tones in the Mandarin. Okay, just have to memorize how the tones are pronounced. How do we say it out loud? All right. So now let's move on and zoom into some of the very tough pronunciation for new Mandarin beginners. So just now I mentioned ZH, CH, and SH. So these are usually the ones that new learners will face most challenges in lah. Okay, so let's try ZH. Okay, ZHI we pronounce as zhi, zhi. Let's repeat after me. Zhi,
G,
zhi. Not G. It's zhi. Let's try again. Zhi.
G,
Roll your tongue about it.
G,
Zhi.
G,
Look at my lips. Zhi,
G,
zhi. Very good. Zhi. 好. If you want to say I know, you say 我知道。我知道 ，OK，我知道 ，OK，我知道。好，that case is 我知道。Now again, when you see H in the Mandarin Hanyu pinyin, again just remember roll your tongue, OK，知。Now CH, let's see CHI CHI is 吃，吃。Let's repeat after me，吃，吃。Very good，吃很好，吃。好，非常好。Now, let's look at how do we say eat You want to say eat we say 吃饭，对对，吃饭。Let's repeat after me，吃饭，很好，very good. Now, SHI is 吃，吃，吃。Let's repeat after me，吃，吃。Now, SHI with the fourth tone, how do you pronounce it? Remember, like angry, 是, very good. So you want to say I might, you can say 我是麦克. You can just say 我是麦是麦克. Now, one thing that I would need to highlight in this slide is that you can notice ZHI, CHI, and SHI, your instincts, if you've been an English speaker for the longest time, your instincts would be to pronounce them as G, she, and she. And it's not wrong, right? Westerners have been speaking like that. So you know people have been saying stuff like chi, the aura, chi, CHI. People who pronounce it as CHI. Actually, it's not pronounced, it's not spelled as CHI. Chi is pronounced as QI. Chi is spelled as QI. CHI will sound like chi. Yeah, ZHI will sound like zhi. SHI will sound like shi. So always remember SHI, anything that has I and it has an H in there, ZHI, CHI, and SHI is pronounced as zhi, chi, shi. Okay, zhi, chi, shi. Key thing is to roll your tongue, all right? Now, let's move on to ZCS. How do we differentiate them? Now, ZI is pronounced as zi, zi, zi. You can notice your tongue is a bit more relaxed. Even your facial muscle, you will feel it to be more relaxed, okay? Zi. Let's read after me. Zi, zi. Very good. Now, ZI with the fourth tone. You can see here, ZI with the fourth tone. How do you pronounce it? Again, like angry. Zi. Very good. Zi. Let's read after me. Zi. Very good. Now, 自己. Let's read after me. 自己. Very good. It means self. Okay. Now CI. CI is 吃. Let's repeat after me. 吃. 吃. Very good. So you can see, C, all these things without the H are a lot more easier, right? Just H, you have to roll your tongue. But H is the one that's most commonly used, unfortunately, so you have to learn how to roll your tongue anyway. So anyway, CI with the fourth tone, how do you pronounce it? 次. So 3 times you say 三次. 三次. How? The last one, SI, how do you pronounce it? 四. Not C, C is XI, C is XI, always remember that. SI is 四, XI is C. Okay, remember that. Let's move on to the last slide. The ones that people will also face trouble when you are new in Mandarin, okay? Now, the first one is the word RI. The second one is the word RE. So what is the difference between RI and RE? Now, of course, in English, you would just say re and rare, okay, but it's not the case in Mandarin, okay? In Mandarin, RI, we say R. Now, just look at and watch how I speak this word first. RI is R. Notice my lips. R. RI. R. Now, when you say RE, open your mouth. R. R. So again, RI. R. RE. R. I'm going to repeat both of them again. R. R. Okay? R. R. Both are fourth tone. R. R. Let's repeat after me. RI. R. Very good. Then RE is R. 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 Don't get confused. Okay, don't suddenly see this RI and then say R. No, this is R. Okay, different word. People hear also, people would think you're saying another word. Again, intonation, pronunciation is very important in Mandarin speaking language. Okay. 好, R means day or sun. R means hot. Okay, very important. 好, now, some of the few things that I will need to mention in terms of like rules, just a bit of overtime, 5 minutes overtime. Okay, now there are changes of tones. These changes of tones will only happen when two third tones, this one is third tone, this one is third tone, this one also third tone, this one also third tone. When these two meet each other, means they are side by side, back to back. What will happen is that, because very hard to say both also third tone. So let's say you say 你好, when you're actually saying hello to someone, but 你好 sounds so depressing because you're sounding so low, right? So what will happen is that they would switch the first third tone to the second tone. So in reality, when you separate these two words, 你 and 好, both of them has third tone. But when they meet each other suddenly, oh, I meet you. This is 好. Cannot, both of them cannot third tone. You will clash. So the first third tone will switch, become a second tone. Then it can go together. Okay, so you can see 你好, both third tones. The first third tone will convert to a second tone. Okay, all right. So this one is also quite important. You know why? Because there have been students who are like at level 2, level 3. They will ask me stuff like, "Hey teacher, I thought this 你 is actually a third tone. How come here in the textbook is written a second tone?" Then I will have to explain the rule again. Not that I mind explaining, but at least now you know. Okay, you don't have to memorize this. As you go along and you forget, I will always try to remind you. Okay. Now, another thing about Hanyu Pinyin Mandarin phonetic letters is that there are some cases whereby when we type things only in Hanyu Pinyin, only in the phonetics, in the alphabets, you would use capital letter. But when you use Mandarin characters, of course, there's no such thing as capital letter. But then when you use English to write down the Mandarin characters, there are things that are written in capital letters. When do we use them? Now, of course, as usual, the first letter of the first syllable for any sentence must be capitalized. Okay, must be capitalized. You write English, the first letter must be capitalized, all right? Proper nouns must be capitalized as well. Proper nouns means names. Personal names like Mao Zedong also must be capitalized. M, Z, D, these are all names. So Zedong is one word, so M and Z is capitalized. Place names, Beijing, and 美国, United States, are also capitalized, all right? Okay, so that's it. Before we end the class, let's learn a couple new words because just so happen it's Chinese New Year next week, this weekend. How do we say Happy New Year? Happy New Year, we say 新年快乐. Repeat after me. 新年快乐.
新年快乐.
对啊 now we have already learned all these intonation 嘛 let's try to speak it with the intonation please now let's look at the sin is the first tone 年 is the second tone so 新年 let's try to me 新年
新年
很好 now 快乐 both of them are fourth tone so again angry
快
angry
乐
although you're happy very good so now let's try 快乐
快乐
so I'm going to repeat slowly the full word 新年快乐 let's try again 新
新
年
年
快乐
快乐
very good now let's repeat after me 新年快乐
新年快乐
非常好 one more time so you can practice with your Chinese friends 新年快乐
新年快乐
非常好 the next one is 恭喜发财this one if you go to supermarkets you will hear 啦恭喜恭喜 the song okay now 恭喜恭 is the first tone 喜 is the third tone 发 is the first tone 财 is second tone so let's try 恭喜恭喜发财恭喜发财 one more time 恭
恭
喜
喜
发
发财
try again
财
恭喜发财
恭喜发财
对，很好。Let's try again 新年快乐，
新年快乐
恭喜发财，
恭喜发财
非常好。One more time，新年快乐 with the correct tone。
新年快乐
对，恭喜发财，
恭喜发财
非常好。好，祝你们新年快乐，恭喜发财。Thank you for attending the class. You will have the next class next Thursday. But let's say suddenly if you're off for like 1 week and you prefer for the class to be postponed, you can always do a vote in the group. Self-initiated one, so you can always just text in the group, hey teacher, this week cuti lah. Everyone want to cuti along with me or not? Just do that vote. It's okay. Okay? Because I will always encourage more people in the class because then you will have more feedback and more questions in the class. Everyone can learn together. So always whatever you want, initiate in the group. Don't be so shy. All right. Okay. Any questions before we end the class? No questions. Okay. 非常好. Thank you very much for
谢谢
joining
你
this class. 谢谢你 for joining this class. I'll see you again next week. Okay.